The massive stone gates of the monster manor groaned, metal scraping against rock as they swung wide. Inside, the cavernous hall hummed with an unnatural, vibrant energy. Hundreds of lanterns floated near the vaulted ceiling, casting a warm, pulsating glow over the polished floor. Scaly Monster stood by a towering pile of wrapped gifts, his focus entirely on a small party hat. He adjusted the brim, checked the angle, and smoothed it down with a heavy claw. Balloons in every imaginable shade bobbed in the draft created by the opening doors. The music had not yet started, leaving the room filled with a soft rustle of movement and the scent of sugar. Then, it happened. A sharp, rhythmic knock echoed against the heavy oak entrance. One strike, two, three. The sound sliced through the quiet anticipation of the room. Scaly Monster paused, his head tilting toward the sound. Silence descended on the hall. Monster Guard shifted his weight, his heavy boots thudding against the floor as he stomped toward the entrance. He reached the door, placed a hand on the iron latch, and pulled the peephole cover back. Outside, the night remained dark and silent, waiting for the guard to reveal who stood on the other side. A funny ghost hovered on the threshold, his form shivering against the cold night air. Monster Guard stood like a mountain, his arms crossed tight, eyes narrowing as he blocked the path. He held out a palm, demanding the invitation. The ghost reached into his pockets, found nothing but empty air, and offered a helpless shrug. The guard did not move. He shifted his massive tail, sliding it across the floor to seal the gap entirely. A hush rippled through the hall. Dancers froze, their eyes fixed on the doorway. The ghost looked at the table piled high with chocolate cake, then back at the stern guard. Suddenly, the ghost began to move. He twitched, spun, and performed a wobbly, frantic dance that defied gravity. He twisted his limbs in impossible directions, his movements erratic and desperate. The tension in the room snapped. A ripple of laughter broke out, then cheers. The crowd parted, creating a path from the door to the center of the hall. Scaly Monster let out a thunderous roar, but his eyes crinkled with sudden warmth. He stepped forward, reached past the guard, and plucked a slice of chocolate cake from the table. He held it out, offering the treat to the ghost as an invitation to stay. The rhythm of the room shifted again as Zombie shuffled into the center. He balanced a precariously tall tower of wrapped boxes, his steps heavy and measured. He navigated the floor with precision, carefully steering around the display table to avoid the scattered treats, his eyes locked on the frosting. Before he could reach the table, a sudden crackle of energy filled the air. Witch raised her wand, and a wave of golden sparkles erupted from the tip. The dust drifted down from the ceiling, catching the lantern light and turning the entire hall into a glowing, ethereal space. The temperature rose, and a soft, warm light bathed every corner. Mummy responded to the change instantly. He began to spin, his long, trailing bindings whipping through the air like ribbons caught in a gale. He bounced off the stone walls, his laughter ringing out as he wove through the crowd. Vampire swooped down from the high rafters, his descent controlled and sharp, landing beside the punch bowl with a soft thud. He raised a glass of red juice high, signaling a toast. Then, the skylight creaked open. Friendly Dragon pulled himself through, puffing out great, billowing clouds of shimmering glitter that hung suspended in the golden air. The hall was now a vortex of motion and light. The music surged, climbing to a thunderous crescendo that shook the very foundation of the manor. Scaly Monster signaled with a sharp clap, and the chaos of the room instantly unified. Every creature moved toward the center, linking arms in a tight, unbreakable circle. The laughter ceased, replaced by the heavy, rhythmic thud of feet hitting the stone floor. 1, 2, 3, stomp! The vibration traveled up through the floorboards, rattling the display tables and sending ripples across the punch bowl. They stomped in perfect unison, their collective weight creating a pulse that seemed to beat with the music itself. The lanterns above swayed violently, their flames flickering as the air grew heavy with the force of their movement. They spun, their linked arms acting as a single rotating force. They waved their claws in time with the beat, shouting until the rafters groaned under the pressure. The energy in the room hit a searing peak. Every stomp landed with more power than the last, shaking dust from the ceiling and making the stone walls hum. They moved as one organism, a singular wave of sound and motion that pushed the limits of the hall. The lanterns dimmed and flared, caught in the rhythm of the stomp, as the party reached its final breathless peak of unity. The thundering rhythm slowed, leaving the hall echoing with the residual pulse of the celebration. As the music tapered off into a soft melodic hum, the group converged on the center of the hall. They gathered tightly around the table where the cake sat, the candles casting long dancing shadows against the stone walls. Scaly Monster leaned forward, his breathing heavy but steady. He looked at the others, and they leaned in, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. On a silent count, they blew. The light vanished, replaced by a momentary, swirling cloud of smoke that drifted toward the ceiling. A collective cheer erupted, sharp and bright, ringing off the cavernous ceiling. The intensity of the night dissolved into shared smiles and quiet nods of acknowledgement. Slowly, they turned and began to shuffle toward the entrance. The massive stone gate, which had been locked shut, stood wide open to the night air. They reached the threshold, their forms silhouetted against the dark exterior. One by one, they turned back, raising hands and claws in a final, sweeping wave. The last notes of the fading song drifted into the trees outside. They stood in the doorway for a beat, watching the lanterns dim to embers, before stepping out into the cool, silent night.